welcome everyone. Delighted that we're able to come together on the pre-storm weekend here in Boston and speak about the works of Hideaki Miyamura and the joy it has been for us to work together with him for almost a quarter of a century, which somehow makes Hide a lot older than he thinks he is. In any event, it's a real pleasure just to have been part of this extraordinary personal journey that he has been on with his work and his commitment to his work. As ever, Brother Thomas informs my life in good ways, and I would just want to share with you a brief quote of his. What we can do will eventually respond to what we dream we can do. And I really think that that really has occurred in Hide's work. One requires talent, but beyond that, one requires a sense of calling. And in this case, he has been called to create forms, create glazes, and create objects of enormous beauty that have in fact enriched so many people's lives. So as a sort of colleague, bystander alongside him, it's been a joy to see. So to have so many wonderful people also sharing the panel with us today is really extraordinary, and another tribute to Hide and his work, that your work has invited people into the process in such a good way. So let's look at the first of the cover of the catalog and of our discussion today, Form and the Spirit. And so Hide, we normally don't start talking about the cover, but I think this is a wonderful place for you to say a few words, and then we can begin to access all the folks who are here.
Sure. I always liked animals, so since my childhood, I was looking for reading different animals, and especially when I create this piece, I was looking at the fish, in the ocean, and then I found this very unique creature, the small, like a human being, like a tiny human swimming in the ocean. So that's the I don't know. Have you ever seen that sea angel? And sometimes people confuse sea angel and angelfish. So the idea from sea angel. So this is kind of difficult to. Okay, I found that the fish is my favorite fish. Then how to transfer to my pottery? Then the lot of process to create, and it took me a long time to do it. And I dosed probably 8 pieces so far. I made 10 pieces so far, but 2 pieces just came out. This is one of them. So that's my process, and that technically some are really hard to make. So that's why I lost 8 pieces so far.
And let's look at the piece itself by itself without the type. And Mara, would you respond to the piece and possibly to what Hide said?
Well, the sea angel, as far as I know, is tiny. It does have this wonderful, sort of arm, bulbous, almost jellyfish-like body,
like wings too,
and it's iridescent. So when I think of your work, I of course think of those incredible glazes and the incredible iridescence that you give something. So it's almost like you can see into, and the sea angel is very definitely one of those fish, like a jellyfish, that you see into and through. It has a transparency, translucency that's quite remarkable. This, and then of course an angel with the uplifted wings. So you've got something that feels like it's going to be propelled up. If your instance or your inspiration is of course propelled up through the water and through the sea. But it still has that angel form that looks like it's prilled up, like it's an ascending being. And I like the fact that it's got this bilateral symmetry, but it's not perfect. the hand of the artist is very much in this piece, how you put the pressure on the inside curves, the pulse out. And that lack of perfection, I think, is what gives it its animating presence.
It's a wonderful insight. Caroline, your thoughts about it?
I love when anyone can take inspiration from a form and not just make the thing one for one, but distill it into shapes that they see and enjoy. And that's what I mean, that's what I see in here, because you wouldn't necessarily pull the sea angel when you know on a cold read, but when he says that, it does bring it so much more to life, and where he got it and that it's in the round gives it this sense of spinning that wouldn't be there otherwise, and a sense of dancing.
The other interesting thing is, in fact, that this is a form inspired by another form, and it is a form that no one else has done. So the next piece that we'll look at, and we can certainly move to that, provides us with a vase form with an elongated neck and a long bulbous bottom, as if you could put a flower in here, good luck. It's a little narrow neck, but all that said, it still is a more familiar form than what was on the cover of the catalog, and it's interesting to have that particular background. Rusty, your thoughts about this particular piece?
Well, two things. One is the variation in form. If you look at Hideaki's work, especially a group of pieces, is really wonderful. I mean, his ability to, these are not easy things to make to begin with. But secondly, the inspiration to have a variability and it's obviously inspired. What Mara just said, the sense of the feeling, it's not perfect, it's almost perfect. So you want to think that, but then you say, no, this is human made. And there's always about Hideaki's work that is beautiful, unique, but then human made, and therefore you connect to it. But the other thing is the glazes that this particular glaze that is in a number of other pieces is actually a combination, I think, Hideaki, of different, it's a hare's fur glaze that we see prominently, that wonderful sort of string blue effect. But on the bottom, I believe, is a wonderful soft, different. And so pieces of yours have different textures, if you will. And if you hold this from the bottom, you have one sensation. As you look at the hare's fur glaze or touch that, it's another. And so it's a combination of emotions that you get, not just looking, but handling these pieces.
Which is the major attraction I had when I first started with clay, because someone else's hands had made it. And in holding it, I felt connected to them and to their spirit. Franz, you've known Hideaki for quite some time, and this was an opportunity for you to just share your response to this particular piece.
Well, what I find remarkable about Hideaki's work is the contrast that he uses in all his pieces. It was really obvious in the last one, the contrast of form and proportion, and then that balanced by the color and the glaze texture as well, brings in elements just in those elements themselves, sacred geometry, the glazes, the crystalline aspect of it. This particular glaze reminds me of a labradorite. I happen to have a piece right here. It looks pretty normal if you hold it back, but if you bring it into the light, it picks up the iridescence, and that gives it depth in terms of how you look at it. And, you know, coming to this right off the bat, the first thing you notice is how the glaze embellishes that beautiful soft form and gives a particular texture to it. And almost also, I saw a cityscape on the bottom with northern lights above it. And there's so much you can read into it if you come to it and just spend time with it.
Hide, would you speak a bit about your education here in the United States and then your apprenticeship in Japan?
Yeah,
Really?
I went to school in Michigan. Then after finish, I went to Japan. That I became well. That time I had to help my father's business. Then I wanted to do something. Want to create something with my hand. So just I quit. Then I found that potter next town. Then I went to I visited his studio. That day he accepted me to be an apprentice. So I studied there for a year, and but it wasn't quite for me to taste glazes because he didn't have that many glazes. So I found another teacher. So then I moved to another area in Japan. There I studied for 5 years. Probably you know Japanese apprentice is really strict. Like you have to work 13 hours, 14 hours a day, and 7 days a week. So there's almost no break, just working straight. Even there's no Christmas Day or New Year's Day, nothing, just working. And my teacher was so nice to me. He gave me always a new idea and glaze assignment. So I tested glazes, testing glaze every morning. Then afternoon throwing, and that time it's interesting. Teacher always get the order from department store as wedding gift or some kind of gift. So that time I didn't have enough ability to make those production line. But after 4 years, that's my job to fill orders. So I made every day I threw 100 pieces a day. So I still remember teacher gave me assignment to make teacups. So that was a best record for me. I made 450 cups a day. That's the I was so quick in that time already. I throw really quick and started make my own shapes. That was a good time to study, and I study a lot that time. Then same time, yes.
Rather amazing when Americans decide they're going to do ceramics, and they work for a day and throw 3 pieces, and then they work for the next day and they do 5 pieces. So when you use the number 450 in the course of a day, and I've visited the Ginemongama, which is basically a high-end commercial project, there was some fellow sitting there literally throwing little teacups, and within 15 minutes had done like 40 of them. And he didn't even use a wire to cut the clay off. He had long fingernails and lifted the piece off onto a pallet, and then they just accumulated very quickly. So facility is part of it. And I want to share with you this quote of Thomas's because it's something that has occurred to me, particularly in relation to your apprenticeship. Skill and art are not the same thing. The only real measure of art is astonishment. And I would argue at this point, and we'll look at the next piece as we do it, that your work has moved from not only the capacity to make 450 pieces in a day, but your work astonishes people. And were you to be in the gallery on a daily basis, and especially with the opening of your show next week, just to stand here and inhale the joy that your work brings to other people because they see it and they are functionally astonished. So, Mara, this is a piece for you.
Well, this one goes from these sort of soft, graceful shapes to actually having an incised edge, the 10 facets on the piece, which gives it a very different feel. It doesn't have the feel of a body. It has a feel or an organic form. It has the feel of something more utilitarian or industrial, or definitely touched by a hand or a machine. It's made for a functional purpose, just because there are no edges like this in nature, really. I think that when we look at this piece, we're talking 8 inches high by 7 inches side to side, front to back. So there's a symmetry in the piece and the 10 facets, and there's this almost feeling of like a dreidel or a top that goes with this. So it's very it's functional but playful to me, except for this glorious gold glaze, which all of a sudden moves it into the realm of a jewel, or the facets of a jewel. So what I love about this work is that you can play with it, and have an experience of it. It's when you're contemplating it, that runs through a range of emotions and a range through associations in your head. And that's a mark of an aesthetic experience. So it's not just a functional object, it becomes an aesthetic experience because we can play with this for hours. I'm going to sign off. We're getting an alert on the weather on my phone system. Sorry.
No problem. So let me ask Caroline to talk about it, and then I want to say something about it.
Well, I loved what Mara brought up about it being like a gem, something that isn't taken from nature and then cut and presented in a very different way. It's actually really fun to think of. I haven't thought about it like that, and it's getting my head going a little bit. And that being paired with the gold, I know that when I've shown people around the gallery, when we come to Hide's stuff, and if you tell people it's porcelain, they're like, wait, what? Most people react, they have to check it out that way. And his pieces are very tactile. There's texture to most of them, and that gives people who maybe are a little timid about being around ceramics to touch them, and it kind of opens a door. And that's something that's lovely about his work. And this piece is just really something when he brings this gem-like quality to them, not only in the glaze but in the form itself. Playing, it's almost like he plays all the way from gems in the earth to outer space, and I love all that context. He just captures the beauty and glimmer of the world.
We display it in the gallery on a turntable. So in a sense, when Mara mentioned dreidel, which is used at Hanukkah time, it has that, and then the lid handle that we'll look at more carefully on another piece literally gives you that feeling that you could take it and spin it yourself. So having it on a turntable enhances the opportunity to experience it in such a wonderful way. Rusty, your thoughts about this piece before we move on?
I love what Mara said. I think it's a wonderful combination, and Caroline too. It is like there's this gold element to it, and yet it's multifaceted. It's got 10 sides to it that are beautifully done, and I think you can't emphasize enough. Working in porcelain is not the easiest material to work with, and to have this, or even more so, the long necked items come out and not sort of flop over is it's not an easy thing to do. The other issue is simply the wonderful, and we'll see more of this, but I think perhaps one of the finest aspects of the work are these little tiny crystal glazes. Somehow Hide can control how these little tiny crystals pop and create this beautiful reflective surface that is engaging at the same time. It reflects a gold light, but it's also it's a pattern that draws you in as you look at them, and it's really phenomenal. Not only gold, but all the other colors we'll see. It's really quite a unique technique.
I love it. It also enables us to, I think, engage with them. Hide, I wanted to ask you a particular question about it. Is this hand built? Is it a mold? How did you end up with the shape?
Actually, I made the mold for it, and then I used a slab. Then putting the slab on the, I connected each corner, and then the top portion I used wheel, and the pieces I thrown around, then fit for the the bottom. But the problem is if I throw one piece, even two pieces together and put them together, it's okay because it's the same shrinkage. But this case, it's so hard to control the shape because the so much tension square to round shape on top portion. Even I manage it cracks all the time. I had a really hard time to make those
Right.
square shape piece. So then top rim, it's always make deformed because the tensions, each tension is so different. This is a 10-sided. So 10-sided pulling all every direction. So cannot get the right round shape on, especially around the lid area. So technically, it's quite difficult to do it. I still make a lot of rejects. So
I think the important thing is the work itself, when it's finished, shows none of the tension, stress that went into making it. And
yes.
that really is a wonderful tribute to you and to the creation of any work of art. Next slide, please. A rather remarkable one, inspired by a Peruvian shape. We can look at the next slide, which juxtaposes it, I think, yeah. And then go back to asking Caroline if you can begin speaking about this.
Well, this is where I talk about him capturing the spirit of a form. He doesn't necessarily take something that he's inspired from nature and just do one for one. This one's more is interesting in that he has taken that, but he has distilled it down to what is speaking to him. And it lets the form speak out in a very different way than this Peruvian piece that becomes totally different when you paint a face on it, put ears, you start putting basically language on it with the images. And Hide's distilled it into something totally different, but you could almost overlap them in the general outlines, 90% similar, but they're just so different. And this form too is very different to see something with such an open neck for Hide's work. Usually you can't stick anything in there, but someone might be tempted to stick some flowers in here. But and also that this is porcelain and not metal too. It's just beautiful. They're great pieces.
Nicely said. Franz, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a very, very powerful piece that demonstrates Hide's sense of sacred geometry in a way. The divisions, the clear divisions he makes in the three parts of this piece are identify the bottom half, which we see, and the top half. The bottom half is more grounded, more anchored to the earth, and then the top part lifting up, if you will, to the heavens. And there's the golden ratio involved in this too, in terms of the width proportions, but also the divisions he makes in the form moving upward. And then to have that balanced and united with the overall golden glaze too, with all its crystalline structure. And we've talked about that in the past pieces too, how you have this formal structure that is very distinct, and then you have aspects that unite it together. And I'll just bring this, and this is the last time I'll show some, but this is called the wavellite. And in nature, it responds back to nature and how we can combine aspects of that natural form and what seems to be chaotic in its growth patterns, but is actually very fractal and organized. And it comes together in this piece. Again, the color unites the contrast in the different forms.
Beautifully said. Can we go back to the piece itself and ask Mara to respond to it?
Well, I think Franz's observations sum it up, but I'd like to just point out the area that when that flute so you start anchored to the earth, as he said, and then you've got this sort of rich undulation, but then you go up to this flute. And it's the way the glaze almost smokes off at the outer edge of the flute that is just this magical moment in a very stable, solidly grounded piece, that it allows it to breathe in a way that becomes mystical for me.
That's lovely. Yeah, go ahead.
It's musical for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a horn, and the bunching at the bottom, which is symmetrical, and as everybody's described it, is a force that pushes out and is ultimately captured, as Mara said, with that wonderful silver area at the top. It's like air going out, and this is the blowing of a horn, and it just I'm listening for a note as I look at it.
And when I look at the base of it, it feels like that's a deep reservoir that's accumulating the mystery of life, if you will, and then the rising spout allows that to be shared with the world.
Edie, I hope that you're taking in all these responses and comments, because they've got to give you good energy to continue on your path. This, Rusty, your comment about being a horn was perfect for me. Yeah.
This piece was gifted from one of my collectors, and he said, "Look at every time you worry, you need hope. Just look at it. That piece give you power and hope. So please display in your room." So I've been displaying in my room all the time. So it has been great piece for me. Those plebeian pottery from my collector.
Also a nice indication that one never knows where inspiration comes from,
Yes.
and then what you do with it. And you've done really quite magical things with this particular inspiration. So kudos to your collector.
I'd also like to point out that this is a fairly substantial piece. It's 17 inches high and 10 inches at its widest point. It's pretty big for such, I mean, it's a powerful object, but at 17 inches, it's got a presence that a little thing wouldn't have in porcelain.
Absolutely correct. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, Hede, this is a familiar glaze that continues to grow, evolve, and change, particularly with the peacock form in it. So why don't you start talking about it, and then we'll begin to share other responses.
This is a typical jar. I like the shape of the lid. Came from the probably Mara maybe saw the temple in Japan, Nara or Kyoto. The temple roof shaped like that, like sometimes 5 layers of the roof. And my idea came from those temples roof. So that's the my design. I just arranged the design. So that's my my idea. And also the glaze. This blue hairs, I use blue hairs for glaze. Very interesting. I've been using almost last 30 years. And I never get tired of it. Every single firing came out different way. So this is more like green on top and blue on bottom. So then I had to create another glaze formula to make a peacock effect. So this glaze, I use 2 glazes, and I don't know that maybe firing was good, but it's very rare because the one top green and the bottom blue. So it came out really nicely. I really like this piece. So
let's look just at the next slide, because we took just brief photographs of the pagoda-like lid, so people had a sense of it. And there's a kind of dancing quality to it, the one on its side, obviously, but it finishes off the vase shape in such an elegant manner. One of the things that Thomas wrote is, art is not an occupation. At some point, it becomes a state of being. becoming something from which you can never retire, an interior bush that never burns out. And I think that this burning fire in you to continue to push yourself to another place, another space, inspired by certain things that people either give you or see, but at the same time, you continue to access that which is in you, which is called to make these pots. So I would certainly highly congratulate you on all that you've accomplished with it. Let's go back to the piece for a minute. And Mara, if you would respond to it, I would love it.
Oh, there's everything to love about this piece.
Right.
Everything. It is just, you're so beautifully proportioned. But I just want to talk about the glaze. I mean, there's a harmony to this whole piece, and yet there's excitement to it. So when you look at the glaze, sometimes the peacock eyes seem to be coming from under the primary glaze, and sometimes it seems to be on top of it. So there's this hovering, moving back and forth quality. And then as the glaze slips around the waist of the piece, and then where the piece starts to come in again, it's almost as if it's melted, like just melted into itself. It becomes more fluid. The pace of the piece becomes faster. So there are all these shifts of top, bottom, under, over, dancing, static dancing, movement stasis in this piece, because of the balance of the piece is so sort of with that pagoda head is so sort of perfectly still, and then everything about the surface is all about movement. I mean, I think this is just a remarkable achievement.
Agreed, for sure. And I just wanted everyone, let's then look at the lid and then we'll move on to the next piece. But again, even the small detail, if you will, is done with such a rigor that adds enormously to the piece itself. We should have actually photographed it as well and shared it with you without this particular lid. Next slide, please. So again, we have an example, I think, ultimately of virtuosity in throwing. This is 18.5 inches high, which means that when he threw it, it probably was another 20-25% larger to maintain the symmetry and beauty, elegance of the piece, just physically. I know he did a long apprenticeship, but it certainly worked. So I'm going to ask Rusty if you'd begin speaking about it, and then there's a detail as well we have of an up close of the glaze itself.
Well, like all the pieces, there's so much to say. This is a beautiful form. This is almost a teardrop form. And I repeat, this is not an easy form to make out of porcelain. That long neck in porcelain is something that's admirable to achieve without losing the uprightness of it, the straightness of it. But it's a wonderful transition between that. You can look like, I'm looking top to bottom. You could certainly go bottom to top, but I'm looking top to bottom. You go down this very thin neck and then just elegantly open up into a beautiful teardrop. And yet this teardrop sits on a countertop. You think it would just roll around because it's the way it's thrown. You get all the way down to the bottom with a beautiful edge that's rounded. They can just sort of roll around, but obviously there is a subtle foot down there that allows us to sit straight up. But the proportions here, again, the length of the neck and the length of the teardrop and the way they merge, there's something about knowing how to do that it looks like, oh yeah, I just threw this piece, but it's really critical in terms of your emotional reaction to this, what the length or the size of these things are and how the transition goes. So someone else can speak to the glaze, which is really unique, but the form here is just beautiful.
Totally agree. Caroline, would you do the detail of the glaze and then give us your thoughts?
Well, here you can see, as Hide mentioned before in the practice, this is a crystalline glaze. So this up close detail, you can see that texture of the crystals forming, and that's crystalline glazes. Many people might know who's interested in his work in terms of how his glaze chemistry is actual crystals forming on the surface. It's not just called that because it looks like them, it's because they are crystals forming there. And I think Hide said this was his newest glaze, so I'll give him the floor to maybe talk about it since it's his newest pursuit.
Hide?
Yes. Well, yes, this is newest glaze, and I made few almost 5 years ago, but I just gave up. It's fire after fire didn't come out, so this is the just newest one just came out, and well, it is like I named it Starry Night or maybe Midnight Sky. Looks like it, star shining in the night sky. It is. I think that's a good expression. When you look at it, you can see stars, night sky. So, well, I wanted to make more, but there are so many difficulty to make. But people at the show, people see it and enjoy seeing it. I'll be very happy.
That's wonderful. Mara, go back to you because and then we'll look at the full form again if we can. Caroline, great. Mara?
Well, again, it's as Rusty said, it's sort of magically poised. You don't see how he's put a foot in there in the photograph. I'm sure if I were in the gallery and I went down this low to try and look at it, I could perceive it or pick it up. So that falling teardrop effect is magical. But the midnight sky, I think it's the midnight sky glaze, I think is sort of a perfect expression, particularly when you're up here and there's no light pollution or way up in the White Mountains, what that sky looks like in the middle of the night on a starry but moonless night. And the interplay of the crystals or the light or the twinkling and the matte of this deep, 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 deep color, which reads on the slide as it's almost an inky black as opposed to a midnight blue. You'd have to correct me if I'm wrong, having not seen the piece in person. It creates both a surface tension and that light emitting quality, which is, again, it's all the things that each piece holds in tension that really intrigues me about the work.
Interesting. So I'm going to share another quote and then we're going to move on. But it seems to me, Thomas wrote, "We are all born with creativity because we are born with an unquenchable thirst for the beautiful." And I would argue that Hide certainly provides us with an opportunity to engage with the beautiful. So thank you. Next slide, please. Hide, I would like you to begin talking about the yellow glaze that you've chosen for this piece and also developed yourself.
Yes, the shape I used like a gold shape, very lucky shape, especially among the tea ceremony tea masters. This is a good shape, good luck shape. Also, people saying monks sitting on the floor and doing meditation, like a Buddha sitting on. This is the posture of meditation. So part of it is good luck shape. So yellow is well, I don't know the. I wanted to make yellow, but I never done it. But this is the first time to make yellow because the I think it's good for, in the world now, it makes more bright and hope to people. And just I made it last year. So can I say the one I wrote a statement yesterday? Just I want to read.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay, yellow is sunshine, a color that carries meaning across cultures. In this time of confusion, when many of us feel dazed, I'm drawn to warm yellow, like the light you hope to encourage in meditation. we are all connected, moving through this together, searching for inner space, inner peace and goodness in one another. We are all in our own way looking for ray of sunshine and hope. That's I wrote last night for this yellow glaze. So
In Hebrew, you say "V'nomar Amen." Let us all say Amen to that, and hope that your wish for the yellow and this particular form, which is the hyotan, the gourd,
yes,
which is also a symbol of fertility, enables mankind to come together in a more productive and more beautiful way, as this piece does for all of us. Next slide, please. Franz, I wish you'd give us some of your thoughts about this rather extraordinary piece, both in form and in glaze.
Yeah, I think it's a magnificent form. And when you look to see that it's 14.5 inches tall, it has a huge presence. This, like a lot of other Hideaki's work that starts and generates as a small base and then rises to its most full form possible, and then contrast with the constriction of the neck moving forward, invites you to want to come and just pick it up like that. The piece that we looked at of the midnight sky had that same feeling. It just almost like a little baby. You want to just pick it up and hold it in your hands and have that tactile feeling of that form. And it's again contrasted with the glaze that is much more specific and much more detailed in its texture. One of the things that I find about that is this full form, which is very simple in that dynamic, and then it's contrasted with the repetition of the lines, almost like an agate that you would see in the mineral world, how you would have repeated layers as you go down, and as the name of the glaze implies, you can also have the feeling in nature of cyclical nature aspect of things, like waves coming to a shore in repeated motion, contrasted against the expanse of maybe the shoreline itself. So this is a magnificent piece. Again, like all the other pieces, it's a magnificent study in contrast, the yin and yang of things, the fullness and the roundness, the constriction nature, the softness of the form itself, and the detail of the patterning in the glazes. Just spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline, your thoughts?
Oh, yes, please. I love this piece so much. And I think it really brings together what pretty much all of Hide's work does. Is there's the material world, which we exist in. And then, of course, we always talk, especially when we talk about beauty and art, to something else outside, something indescribable that, you call the spiritual world. And there's almost like this gap, right? It seems like they don't cross, you don't see angels walking around. You don't have that, but we all have this knowledge that is we're not able to grasp, but his work has this contrast, which Mara talked about, holding attention, that almost points and it connects the two worlds, which is what I think art does, which is what I think beauty does. And this piece with these long necks that he uses that are from forms that are functional. This is a vase, but it's not, well, a bottle, but it's not really a bottle. It is, but it captures what bottles do intrinsically, but removing it from that function helps us think about that connection to the other world and to the spirit, and how vases and pottery remind us of ourselves. The outside of a thing feeds the inside of our souls. And this piece I love it. On top of that, I mean, the undulation of glaze, the depth that's captured from this timiku, the brown syrupy Timiku that is transparent and showing some of the porcelain body to this hare's fur that's just a totally different texture, totally different visual experience. There's like 10 layers happening here, and you could, like Franz putting the cityscape, you could just explore the whole thing indefinitely.
Beautiful. Rusty?
I would just reiterate, the form is beautiful. It is 14 inches tall. This is not a tiny form. And at the very bottom, again, there's a wonderful softness to it. You can't see it so well, but if you were to pick this up, where you would hold it in your hands, it is just beautifully smooth glaze. But more so, I think both what Carolyn said, what Franz is saying, for me, this is layered with the Tomoko, the layers that go across, the browner layers, almost like you would see rings on a tree. And it would represent growth, time, something. But the fact, and I don't know, Hideaki, whether that was exactly what you had expected when this came out, but the flowing between the rings, the way the glaze has dripped through and merged, just grabs you and says, this is really what life's more about. It's not about clear rings or straight thing. It's more about a melding of textures, because hair fur glaze is a little different, a melding of colors, and a melding of form. And you just, you almost can't take your eyes off that middle ground where that process is happening. I can't.
Mara?
Okay, so in this particular glaze and the patterning of the glaze and the breaks in the glaze, where almost everything else we've looked at has been so melodic, so, sort of, everything your ear wants to hear as a voice is singing to the angels. This surface is so jazzy and contrapuntal. It's like nothing I've ever seen him do before. I think that the excitement of the rhythm structures of this vase, he's calling it blue wave, so you think it's going to be just this easy rhythm of waves coming into the shore, except if you go across, reading across, not just there's all this counterpoint in the piece, and it has just a very different surface structure to me in terms of its, it doesn't sing in this beautiful sort of melodic way. It's scat to me.
Mara, this is Scott Joplin as opposed to Chopin that we've been seeing.
You've got it. There you go.
That's a beautiful way to look at the piece from different angles and yet see the same piece and share it together. Hide, it's a great tribute to you having been able to, after a culmination of maybe 30 years' work, create a single work that elicits so many different responses, and each one of them enhances all of us and our opportunity to see the work anew. And I would argue that any wonderful or great work of art does exactly that. So a real tribute to you in this piece. We're not done yet, but you're more than welcome to try to respond, and then we'll move on. Or you can also be speechless and we can move on.
I don't think he heard you, Bernie.
Oh, okay. Well, we can move on then. So there's this rather tower-like figure with a remarkable lid. The lip of the vase itself is undulating, really quite extraordinary. I'm going to ask Hide, if you're able to hear, can you speak a bit about this piece? And if not, we'll move on to.
The idea from the lighthouse and the top rim, I make a wavy because very related to the ocean. So I made like a wavy shape on top. And then almost the beacon of light. So I thought that the gold glaze, especially gold spots, is just right glaze for this piece. So I applied that. And always I like a lid. So when you look at the lighthouse, there's how do you call it? The top, there's the lens for light. The always.
Lantern.
Yeah,
I call it the
lantern.
lantern.
That's I express that lid. So that it's actually this is I use a section, so there's two pieces, put them together, so it makes more large size. And I think it came out. Really came out really nicely. This is my favorite, my shape.
Mara, your thoughts about the lighthouse?
Well, it's a lighthouse. Certainly, it's a castle. You can feel almost the sea. Lighthouses are generally either on stilts or on a rock somewhere out in the middle of the ocean or at the edge of the ocean. And I come from a family of lighthouse keepers. Minot's Light is where several of my relatives died over the years. So you've got the ocean-like effect, that haze that happens across the ocean. You've certainly got the totemic effect. Again, I want to point out how large this piece is. 22 and a half by almost 8 inches side to side in the round. It's substantial. It's, again, anchored. That bottom goes solidly into the ground. It is not the teardrop-shaped face or the shape that has giant breath in the middle of its bowl at all. It's anchored in the way the Peruvian piece was anchored to the ground in terms of its weight. But having just come back from Japan and spent time in the sea there, the kind of atmospheric quality of moving up into the sunrise or moving up into the sunset from this watery gray mist atmospheric perspective that Asian art is so famous for is quite remarkable to me. It's quite remarkable to me how both substantial and solid this piece and how atmospheric the piece is all at once.
Mara, I'm so thrilled that you went to Japan because there are so many elements of Japan and Japanese art that seem to inform you before you went. So it must have been for you an opportunity to reconnect with parts of you and your own aesthetic.
It's true. My aesthetic is in good part informed by Asian art and philosophical structures. I just sort of gravitate to it. Not that it erased the Catholic upbringing, let me tell you.
Not always there, that's for sure. Caroline, your thoughts?
I think something I really love about this piece, Mara was talking about rising up out of the atmosphere and a sense of lighthouses and castles have a stability or fortress feel to them. I think a lot of that is not only created by this form, but a little less obviously is this undulating kind of Rothko-y banding at the bottom, which is darker and gives this cut line that just gives a sense of being grounded. I think it also is the weight of the piece, but I think it'd be totally different if it was all just gold, if it didn't have that wave at the bottom, which I imagine Hide was intentional because it doesn't seem like an accident that there's that banding down there.
Rusty?
I just as a sort of final nod I think the tops that Hide makes really alter or complete, not alter, but complete the pieces in such small but incredibly powerful ways. I mean, think of all the 3 or 4 pieces we've seen now with these little tops, and each one made differently, each one adding something, however, that just makes the piece complete. And it's such a small thing, and they're all different. Each top is a little bit different, but each, as a complement, they're all make the piece in a way that without it would be a very different piece. And this is another one where if you were to take the top off of this, it would still be interesting, but there's something about that little piece, as in so many others, that is a wonderful completion that just gives extra interest, a binding effect that we all like, to be drawn into art by something. And that little piece done beautifully, differently in each case, but beautifully complementary.
Well, Rusty, I agree with you completely. And in this case, what's very different for me in feel is that he is inset where that goes below. Like you don't see how it fits into the piece. It's
Right.
It's
Oh,
dropped,
nice. Thank you.
dropped into the wave in a way that's
Yeah.
very different than his other tops and
Thank
gives
you.
it a very different feeling.
My first response when I looked at this piece, that it had that strength of that strong verticality and that rising up, but it also reminded me of a core sample of minerals into the earth, like a cross section of the earth. So we have this piece is moving in two directions: the groundedness and the core mineral origins of our earth and our life on this planet, but it also has the rising up and to that delicate top, which is, to me, more aspirational. So I like the two directions that it's going.
Franz, where did you get your geology degree?
It was a pandemic kind of deep dive that I've taken into minerals and crystals. Yeah.
You certainly do know it well. Thank you.
So, Hide, I'll
Yeah.
ask you if you have anything else to say, and then I want to close and thank everyone. But anything that you would like to express or say about the conversation we've had today, about your work,
Oh,
and
I
about
think everybody's so nice about, talking about my piece. Very, very nice. I learned so many things, and thank you so much. And thank you for making your time to have this meeting. Thank you so much.
So
And
let me thank everyone, Hide, because the conversation clearly is inspired by your work, and the people bring their knowledge to it in such a generous way. The
yes,
final quote of Brother Thomas I'd share with you, I think, is relevant, and also to even your remarks before. The consciousness of the beautiful will save the world. And in a sense, your words about the hyotan, about the yellow
Yeah.
piece, introduced into the conversation something that we all need, which is
Yeah.
a sense of hope, a sense of joy, a sense of what beauty can create for all of us, and a sense that beauty can, in fact, transform not only each one of us, but transform the world to a better place for all of us. So I'm grateful to each one of you for sharing your knowledge and your response, and Nide, for you for making such beautiful work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.